Greetings and welcome to the channel. Today I'd like to talk about the Kawasaki W800, but I also want to include the W series in total. In the United States, we only have two of the models, the W650 and then the W800, which replaced it. However, I want to talk about why this is an amazing retro motorcycle. There's lots of data out there that people use to compare this bike to that bike to see what they consider better, is I guess the best way I can put it. The W800 does not fare that well when it comes to base ratings or specs compared to other modern retros, especially the larger displacement ones from Triumph, the Yamaha, the Kawasaki Z series, the Z900 RS and the Z650 RS. The W series, W800 specifically, compares more with the Z650 RS as far as horsepower, torque, things like that. It weighs a bit more than the Z650 RS. It does come in under 500 pounds, which was one of the things that was really important to me. And it does replicate better the nostalgia of a modern retro that performs like a modern motorcycle. For instance, I'll just use the BMW R9 series, whether that's the R9T or the R1200. The primary reason that I think this is such an absolutely amazing motorcycle has nothing to do with the specs. It really doesn't. And it's something that's very hard for me to point to and say, it's this stat, or it's this specification, it's this combination of, parts or materials. I can talk about all those things. There's steel, which contributes to the weight of the motorcycle, including the fenders are steel, chromed steel. And that's something that most motorcycles don't use anymore. They use an alloy of some sort because it's weight saving. And the lighter the bike, the better utilization of the torque and horsepower gets applied to it because of the horsepower to weight ratio, torque to weight ratio really improves the performance when the ratio of every horsepower to X amount of pounds. If you do lower pounds there, you get better utilization, is what I'm saying. The thing that makes the Kawasaki W800 so incredibly special to me is that every single time I see the motorcycle, I smile, and I get like I just love that bike feeling. And every time I ride a W800, my W800 specifically, I get the sensation of the past. I get a sensation of what it was like to ride an early 70s motorcycle. My 70s motorcycle, early 70s motorcycle, was an R75/5 in 1972. And it wasn't the toaster tank with that beautiful chrome insert on the side. It was just gunmetal gray, painted gasoline tank. And it performed like a 1972 bike. It made about 50 horsepower. It was a 750. It had a little over 500 pounds. I think it was about 525. And it had drum brakes. I mean, so when you look at it all the way around, the Kawasaki W series, way more advanced technologically when we talk about features like vented disc brakes with ABS compared to a drum. When we talk about things like the slipper clutch, when we talk about things like the LED headlamp, Those are all very, very modern features that are on the W800. But that's not the big plus and bonus to me. I appreciate that it's ABS. I love ABS. People can outbrake ABS on motorcycles when they really know what they're doing. Where it gets super advantageous to have ABS is panic braking. Because instead of locking up the front or locking up the rear, you're doing neither. And that's the big advantage. It is going to be a longer stopping distance, but you're not going to go sideways, which I think is the big important part. So when it comes down to it, it's an emotional thing that differentiates the W800 from other modern retros and makes it so amazing to me. It's that feeling, recapturing that feeling of being exhilarated by flying while not leaving the ground. It's the best way I can describe it. And that the leans mean something, and that the sound of the motor just has a different sound to it than all the 270 cranks and even a 180 crank. It's got a different sound than a V twin engine. It's got a different sound than a triple or a 4. It just, that 360 degree crank has just such a beautiful sound to me. And the vibrations are strongest on mine, specifically at about 3,500 RPM. And the rest of the time it's perfectly smooth. The vibrations just tell me where I'm at in the rev range. They don't annoy me. They don't bother me. They don't concern me. I did change out, the tires on my W800 because I didn't prefer the way the Dunlop K300s performed or didn't perform. So when I did that, I fell in love with the bike all over again. Because then the confidence I was missing in doing some of the higher speed turns with the steeper lean angles suddenly were no big deal. Whereas on the K300s, I had a little bit of slipping of the tires on the road surface. And I bet most people refer to that as a butt pucker moment where you try and grab the seat harder with your butt cheeks. I don't know if that's actually what's happening, but that's what it feels like. And the stopping distance has improved. The high-speed interstate traveling has vastly improved. The hatched or grooved pavement performance also improved. The dirt, I think it's about the same. I do ride a mile of gravel each way because I live up a gravel road on a mountain. And it's kind of a tricky gravel road. There's a lot of people who don't prefer to come up to the house with their bikes because of that road. And the W makes it up and down absolutely no problem. Part of the appeal of any modern retro is going to be how it looks. And right in that specific category, I think the Kawasaki W Series wins hands down. It's a parallel twin, true parallel, 360 degree crank. It's air cooled. So there's no oil cooler, there's no water cooling on the bike, which does limit the performance. It's a 5-speed, which also limits the performance as far as your top end goes, because once you hit 5th gear, the only thing you can do is up your RPMs. But it 100% looks like the bike came right out of the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s. I've modified mine. Tail rack, crash bars, fly screen, headlamp visor, bar risers. I've modified it, but it still looks the part. And one of the things, I went with the Omega Racer Comfort seat, which is a wider, flatter seat, and I did that specifically because I have a tailbone injury. One of the interesting things about that is it erased the Kawasaki name from the motorcycle except on the fin plate. So when people see my bike and they're not familiar with the Kawasaki W800, it's a guessing game on which bike, which authentic retro bike I did a resto mod on, because they can see there's modern parts on it, but they also see that beautiful bevel drive engine, they see the parallel twin, they see the lines, and they go, this has to be from the 60s or 70s. And I think in that regard, Kawasaki actually did a better job than the competitors at capturing the look and the feel of riding a genuine retro motorcycle without sacrificing the modern conveniences and nannies like ABS that help slipper clutch, that help riders in critical situations, right? Where, you're just not thinking something through, or there's a panic brake because an animal comes out of the forest in front of you with very little time. Always, always, always better to keep the bike upright, do your best to slow, and swerve around either towards the back of the animal or the front of the animal, depending on if they're able to change direction. If they're in a full sprint, aim for the back, right? But those conditions 100% are addressed by modern technology. But the love of riding, that certain something, the je ne sais quoi of the passion and the love of riding a motorcycle is fueled by spending time on the Kawasaki W800 for me. It just does something that rings in my soul and in my heart and says, yeah, this is why I'm a rider. This is why I've been riding motorcycles since 1986. This is why. And it's just something special. So what I would recommend for everybody who's watching this video is go ahead and look at all the stats, go ahead and look at the colors that are coming out, because that's basically the only thing that's changing on the W. It's the colors. Until Kawasaki does something else. But the used market is full of these bikes. You just gotta find them, because they weren't very popular, and I can't figure out why. But if you can find a good used Kawasaki W650, which will be carbureted, has a Kickstarter, may have a drum in back, may have a disc, or the W800, which is going to be fuel injected, no kickstart, a little wider seat, some of the geometries a little different, but both bikes just have this magic about them. And I would say find one and take it for a ride. And then you can see, you can have a few moments of what I'm talking about. And you might feel it just like I did, and you might not. But I'd really recommend that you find one and ride one, just so you can get a capture of what it is that's there. If you want to make modifications to it, parts are easy. You can go on WeBike, you can go, Kawasaki offers some parts for it, replacement parts for it. You can go to Omega Racer, those are my main go-tos. You can buy parts for the W series on Amazon or Revzilla if that's what you'd like to do, and you can make it your own. But what I have found more than anything is the camaraderie of seeing someone else on a W800. There's a whole different thing instead of going, oh, you've got a Ninja, I've got a Ninja. That's fine, but I imagine this is more like having a genuine Norton or a genuine Triumph from the 60s and 70s, and seeing somebody else with the same bike is like a holy smoke moment, as opposed to hey, you're riding, a Harley Dyna or a Electric Light or Road King or something like that, which there's a lot of them. You see those all the time, where W800, W650, not so much. So thank you for enduring the video. This is a lot longer than I anticipated it to be, but I hope it was fun and useful to get my view on it. I hope everyone has a fabulous day. Keep the shiny side up, the rubber side down, and keep it wheeled.